Hey guys, it's Delora Dabbles here, and we're going to do an artist spotlight today on Edred Thorsson / Stephen Flowers. They are the same people. So to begin this, I want to talk about Stephen Flowers as a person, because there's been some talk that he has white supremacist leanings, and I kind of want to talk about that before we get started on his books. So Stephen Flowers, back in the late 80s, early 90s, that whole era, the 80s and the 90s, he was involved with the AFA, the Asatru Folk Assembly. If you guys don't know, they are extremely white supremacist Norse pagans, and they have said some very appalling things. Now, Stephen Flowers used to be a part of that. It's not clear, he's not active, and it's not clear, right, that if he is or isn't, but we can assume that he's not active. And it's just one of those things that make people go, ew, what, and it definitely makes me go, ew, what. That being said, almost all of his books dealing with runes and Norse paganism, they'll have a chapter in there that condemns the Nazis and what they did, right? I think he makes his stance pretty clear within his books. So whenever I found out that he was connected with the AFA, I was appalled and I was shocked, very surprised. It does seem like he has not been involved in that program for a very long time, and he actually established something called the Circle of Truth, and it is a Norse pagan organization that accepts everybody, no matter where you're from ancestrally, and I think it's very important that he did that. He's also not active in that either, but we also have to realize that Stephen Flowers is quite old now. He's not going to be very active in any of these organizations. And it could be that whenever he was active in the AFA, that the white supremacist notions were not there. I don't know. I haven't researched the AFA that much. But it is definitely some mixed messaging, and I can see why people wouldn't want to support his work, not knowing one way or the other. But he does condemn white supremacy and Nazism in most all of his books. He'll have an entire chapter devoted to it. So it is a very mixed message. But anyway, we're going to get into the books. And one of the biggest things that people say about his books is that it'll have, like, these are all the books of his that I have, is that he does not delineate between what is actually historical and academic and what is stuff that he pulled out of his own butt. And the stuff he pulls out of his own butt is great, right? They're good magic practices. He's very good at what he does. But a lot of people have criticized that they would like to know when he's doing that and when he's not. I think if you study Norse paganism, especially if you read Elrunar, you'll have a very, very good grasp on what is period and what is not period, if you are a recreationist and not just a revivalist, I guess. You could use that term instead. Recreationists want to do everything the way it was done, and that we know that it was done in the archaeological past, like how we know that they did those things. And they will not put something into practice unless there's evidence that the Norse or the whatever that they're doing did that, right? Whatever culture they're talking about. And then your revivalists will just take it and run with it and incorporate all kinds of new things to it. So anyway, getting into this, I want to talk about one book by Stephen Flowers that kind of took me off guard. But it is The Secret of the Runes, and it is a translation of a work by Guido von List. If you don't know, Guido von List, intentionally or unintentionally, laid the groundwork for the Nazis to kind of come to power and use the runes and what they meant and the secret of the runes to come to power. Like, we all know that the SS officers are wearing the rune equivalent to S, and of course the swastika and other things. So this, whenever I bought it, I didn't realize what it was, and once I was reading it, I was like, oh my. But I continue to read it because, and I think it's very important to read, maybe not this exact one, but anything that the Nazis put out rune-wise, so that you can recognize what rune meanings are Nazist rune meanings and what rune meanings are actual historical rune meanings. You would be surprised how many rune books unintentionally use the interpretations that the Nazis and Guido von List used, as opposed to the ones that anthropologists and archaeologists are citing now, or the meanings that come straight from the rune poems, right? There are multiple ways to interpret the runes. It's like art. There's multiple ways to interpret things, but if you know what the enemy is doing, you can spot the enemy when you see them. Sometimes that means consuming the work of your enemy. So I have not thrown this away or donated it because I don't want an impressionable person to find it, so I just keep it in my library. Anywho, moving on, Rune Might. This is an old copy. It has been reissued, but this is where you get all of the runic poses and all of that. So this becomes very big in this particular book right here. The different sounds that are associated with different runes, like pitches. There are some, and this is being an older copy, there are actual, I don't know if the new one has this, but there are sex positions for different runes involving more than two people. It's very strange. Very interesting. Sex magic. Anyway, Alu was a really fun one. I enjoyed reading almost all of it. It got a little bit weird towards the end and very kind of convoluted. But again, anything having to do with the runes, I'm going to give it a read and see if I can interpret it anyway, because I'm just stubborn like that. We have At the Well of Weird. This one is out of print because it's redundant. A lot of his older books are going to be redundant. Icelandic magic and Northern magic are also very, very cool, and they have more to do with actual spell crafting. Of course, the runes make an appearance in these two, but these two books are not purely about runes. There's spell crafting and things involved in those. If you are interested in runes, but Edred Thorsson leaves a bad taste in your mouth, I have already done a review of The Night Side of the Runes by Thomas Carlson, and that's a really good one. You should check that out if you're interested in runes, but not necessarily Edred Thorsson / Stephen Flowers. There's also the Runic Workbook. These are out of print, but you can find them fairly easily on Amazon. And then we have two books. I have two books by Stephen Flowers that are not, they don't have anything to do with Norse paganism, and they are very, very well written and well researched. Hermetic Magic and Original Magic. Original Magic is about the Persian Magi, right? And I've gotten about halfway through this one, and from what I can see halfway through, a lot of it is more academically minded. This one is really good. It is very hermetic. It pretty much jives with all the other hermetic texts that I have read, but I like the way this one is written more than I like some of the other hermetic books that I've written. This one, let me just table of contents this. I'm not sure if I have time to table of contents this. Oh my gosh, I daren't. But it definitely talks about the blending of Hellenistic and Egyptian stuff that makes up Hermeticism, and it talks about that blending really well. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, and let me know what your thoughts are about Edred Thorsson / Stephen Flowers. I'd love to know.